with Hitler, the more I learn about that guy, the more I don't care for him. I can't. Come, how do you feel about a woman? She's supposed to be my life partner. I look in the mirror the other day and I says to her, I says, honey, I look in the mirror and all I see is a fat, ugly old man. And I need you to give me a compliment. She says, all right then. Your eyesight is damn near perfect. I said, you dirty dog. Let me ask you something. If I say, hey, I think it may be Madrid or Lisbon, and then the 50-50 comes, it's not going to say Madrid, Lisbon, is it?
You don't know. But it may not be the two that you're thinking of.
Okay. But there's not a dude in the back going like...
No.
50-50.
Let's do it. Computer, take away 2 of those wrong answers.
In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably... You don't get worse luck than that. The reason I don't like it is because in the old days they go, that old man died. Now he lost his battle. That's no way to end your life, you know. What a loser that guy was. Last thing he did was lose. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure if you die, the cancer also dies at exactly the same time. So that, to me, is not a loss, that's a draw. That's a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, here we are, the next day after the passing of Norm MacDonald, and it still feels odd. It feels, it feels like I lose a lot of faith in the future of comedy, because Norm was really one of the only comedians that kind of survived the Trump era comedy turn, which was a huge dark age for comedy, for actual fans of comedy, because, and as Norm accurately pointed out in an interview, he talked about how, you know, Trump being president made it easy for bad comedians, because you would just go up and say Orange Man bad. It's not actually a position. It's just, okay, you don't like that guy, and all of a sudden, all the, you know, late night talk show hosts really shifted hard. Now, shows like The Daily Show kind of always had political commentary slants, but really, people like Kimmel, I remember Fallon getting a lot of heat because he wasn't ripping on the president enough. A lot of Hollywood late night shows just turned to be just left-wing media outlets, and confirmation bias is a thing, and you get an audience to tune in, right? Like, you need a few million viewers each night. You know there's a captive audience of people that really dislike the sitting president. And so you just lean into that. You don't have to be funny. If you can appeal to people's natural delusions. Certainly I remember, like, Stewart ripping Bush Jr., I thought that was funny, but I didn't really tune in for the hard-hitting political takes during that era of The Tonight Show or The Daily Show, which, by the way, The Daily Show is more of a comedy show, but during the Trump era and now during this weirdo loser Trevor Noah's era, it's basically just left-wing media propaganda. That's all it is. It's not funny. You might agree with it. I've often said, and it's probably not my original thought, almost certainly it isn't, but the modern comedian plays for applause, not laughs. And just think about that when you watch somebody like Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or, you know, these other late night shows. They want applause. They want people like porpoises, you know, saying, I agree with that political opinion. I agree. That's, yeah, Orange Man bad. I agree. And so they applause. They don't laugh. And there isn't somebody that made me laugh more than Norm Macdonald. And the media has always disliked him. It started out, obviously, there were powerful people who didn't like that he made fun of OJ so much. Then it was onto that. It was that he had the audacity to stand by Roseanne Barr and Louis C.K. when their careers were completely upended. Now, this isn't to defend Roseanne or Louis C.K., but look what happened to Roseanne. Probably if you're in my era, you know her as the funniest woman of the modern era. The Roseanne show was a cultural phenomenon. I watched it. I still watch replays. I always liked Halloween themes in shows. And Roseanne had the best Halloween episodes, like unprecedented. Nobody does them as good. Maybe King of the Hill had a few pretty good ones too. But, Roseanne, and he wrote for Roseanne on that show, I think in 92 and 93 or 93. He wrote for Roseanne for 2 years. Roseanne made an uncouth joke, and her entire career was taken from her. Louis C.K., again, what he did, not okay if all the details are true. But he stood by them. He didn't never really said, hey, what they did was okay. But he did say hey, I don't, like that we're just ruining people's lives over one mistake they had. McDonald's ostensibly promoting his upcoming Netflix series. And he had defended the idea of his show. Fallon doesn't have a topical angle. Ever since Jon Stewart, late night hosts have all been forced to become political pundits. Even down to Jimmy Fallon, McDonald said, referring to the infamous time Fallon had then candidate Donald Trump on the show and ruffled his hair. To be maligned for quote-unquote humanizing Trump, funny, I thought that he was human, McDonald said. If you have the nominee to be president on your show, he is your guest. Then he is your guest. Don't have him on the show if you don't want him. The Night Show apparently decided quite swiftly that they didn't want Norm Macdonald. And this is another thing that, a lot of Hollywood hypocrites came out. Remember when The Tonight Show canceled on him because of his standing by Louis C.K.? Now, he never said what they did was right or wrong. He just said, hey, this guy's my friend and he made a mistake. So to watch Jimmy Fallon out there last night, and all these Hollywood people acting like, oh, well, Norm we lost a great one. Well, you canceled on him. This is what he wrote. Roseanne and Louis have both been good friends of mine for many years. They both made terrible mistakes. I would never defend their actions. If my words sounded like I was minimizing the pain of their victims feel to this day, I am deeply sorry. And he also said that Trump had caused no loss. He dared to say that, Trump was not the worst thing ever. And Twitter is trying to, in his death, ruin him again. Love that Norm Macdonald held no truck with sacred cows. You can cross any line you mind real comedy from, that's seemingly taboo. Then he started moralizing and tisking people for clowning Trump's coof diagnosis. It seemed a complete repudiation of his long-standing comedy ethos. No, Norm Macdonald was a empathetic man, and he would not have thought laughing at somebody getting sick was, something good. I think Norm Macdonald, the guy who did funny jokes and stuff, I think he'd want us to remember the jokes, but also he was kind of a giant a-hole in recent years, being against Me Too and defending Trump. I think he'd find it weird if we skipped over that. Okay. What's funny, though? All these inbred conservatives falling over the ruse that Norm Macdonald didn't hate that worthless bag of wind, Donald Trump, right? There's such idiots talking about him like he's one of them when he clearly isn't. It's like, what about Norm Macdonald? He just didn't want to make political jokes because he thought they were hacky. He was very clear about this. He did a famous interview, a widely viewed interview, where he talked about that, making political jokes or making jokes at the expense of religion too. He believed were hacky. And then you say one of the top ones here we see, Norm MacDonald said he really didn't think Donald Trump's presidency has been that disastrous and dismissed the idea of Trump's election has emboldened racist attitudes throughout the country. Okay. Again, this retweeting, quote tweeting the announcement that he had died. And it's like, why? Why do you have to be like that? And thankfully, by the way, it was ratioed. 300 comments to 90 likes. The 90 people are pretty sad. He was right. The classic that sounds like some commie gobbledygook or something like that. A lot of people there dunking, rightfully so, on her. And perhaps one of the most sad attempts have now come as somebody's trying to, on the day of his death, like, me to him. Norm MacDonald did something, stuck his hand down on me and groped me 10 years ago when I asked for a picture with him. Proof. Okay, so here's your proof. You took a picture with him. That doesn't actually prove that anything happened. If it did, obviously that's not okay. But, the guy literally, the body wasn't even cold yet. And you're coming out to make this about you. And why not say this over the last 20 years? He did this to me too. Now he's dead and I can't refute it. So I can finally tell people this, weird face. Yeah. So you wait for him to be gone to then clout chase on his death. It's sick. These people all have a mental illness. Norm was one of the best, probably the best. And to disparage him in the moments after his death is truly deranged. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.